Hi, this video is um, an apology and an admission, I suppose. I've made various comments about the Constitution, the current one in effect, which by all measures is illegal if we are to take on face value how constitutional alterations are meant to be applied in this country. The current Constitution, the Australia Act Constitution 1986, by its very inference of the word constitution, is required by law to have a referendum for the masses to vote as to whether we agree with what they want to do, messing with the Constitution, or whether we decline. Anybody who takes an interest in constitutional matters in this country and is prepared to sit down, research, take the time to educate, would come to the realisation that the Australia Act Constitution 1986 has never had a referendum to apply it. Under constitutional law, being that if the infamous government wants to make a constitutional alteration, they are required by law to hold a referendum. In my research, I've been unable, keeping in mind that I've been researching constitutional matters for about 15, 16 years now, there was never a referendum held to apply the Australia Act Constitution 1986. There was, however, a referendum held in 1999 as to whether the country should go to a republic. Now, that particular referendum returned a majority vote no. So when you look at the legalities, if you like, of constitutional alterations, firstly, the country was originated on the Commonwealth of Australia Act Constitution 1901, allegedly. And then we had the fraudulent implementation of the current Constitution, and then there was a referendum 13 years after that event. So if there was no referendum to apply the Australia Act Constitution 1986, would that not decree that that particular constitution that was implemented by the government, it was created by the government and invoked by the government, where no referendum was held, would that not decree as constitutional fraud? And if so, then by default, the country should have reverted back to the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution 1901. That's how I perceived it, and I'm sure that's how many other people perceive it. And yet we have a constitution in effect that we are told that we must abide by, when there's no legal grounds for it to stand in the first place. So therefore, logically, you'd have to think, well, if it's a constitution binding the nation to compliance, and it's an illegal constitution because no referendum's been held for it, and therefore all laws, acts, statutes, mandates associated to that constitution would also have to be illegal. Upon further investigation, or not even investigation, I was enlightened, actually, that even the country's original constitution, the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution 1901, turns out to be, sadly, unfortunately, frivolous. We should know by now that the government operates in a realm of cause and effect, create the cause to obtain the desired effect. So it comes as no surprise that there are things we don't know about the Australian Constitution, and even less things we know about the government. If you are so closed or narrow-minded to believe what Albanese says of full transparency, and clearly that man is about as transparent as a brick wall, in what I was enlightened to recently, stands to be highly probable, if you like, that even the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution 1901 doesn't actually have any validity in standing. There's a transcript, if you like, that I've will add to this video in the comments section. There's a link for a web page to which you can go and investigate it for yourself. The interesting thing about all of this controversy, conspiracy, call it what you like, as far as a conspiracy is concerned, it holds two meanings, and it depends upon in the context of which it is mentioned. The word conspiracy having two meanings: one is to keep secret, the other is where one or many collude together to formulate something that is detrimental to many or one. So conspiracy has two meanings. With what I've been enlightened to recently about Constitution, you could sit there and say, yes, there is a conspiracy, but is it made by conspiracy theorists? That's always going to be the arguable question. On my channel, it says 90% logic, 10% theory, and theory is an unproven fact. Well, this recent bit of revelation that I've stumbled across, the fact that somebody has actually gone to great lengths of making legal inquiry about this, would stand to shine a big light on, yes, there is a conspiracy in Australia, and it was invoked not by conspiracy theorists, but those behind the conspiracy themselves. And that is, in a broad nutshell, the whole political regime in Australia. Unfortunately, Australia is divided in a multicultural nation. Some believe that, or live their lives to the belief that, government is the overall ruling power. And that could be defined in many instances. If you have a bully who runs around bullying other people, then yes, it could be defined as being that they are the ruling class. If you look at it from a prison aspect, there is always a top dog in a prison. There is always the one person who's pulling all the strings and nobody will go against them. That could be defined, albeit even though the entity in question is there for criminal aspects. He is the ruling class of the criminals. And what rules him? Well, the prison officers and ultimately the prison warden. So the conspiracy in Australia, certainly regarding the Constitution, has been done many decades ago, not even like recently to 1986 or to current, but prior 1986, prior 1970. From what I learnt about this revelation was that this goes back prior to 1920s. The information pertaining to the website shows that after legal research into it, and when I say legal, the political satire in England has been challenged, and so is the High Court. The High Court in England has been challenged on this too. And it turns out that the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution it's not Australia's constitution. It's not a set of laws set down for or by Australia. It's Westminster law, which means the Constitution is Westminster's Constitution, not Australia's Constitution. In theory, it would seem as though we don't even have an obligation to what we all perceive to be the country's founding constitution, because we never made it up. It was made for us. It's quite complex in what has been found regarding this matter, and what has been twisted as to given our perception of it. But that's where we're at, and unfortunately trying to I don't want to use educated because it's somewhat kind of insulting to say that somebody's uneducated, but the fact of the matter is this: people perceive or believe that they are educated because they have received what they interpret to be a education. The fact of the matter is that when we as individuals have to go through a curriculum of education, and that education is based upon a given set of parameters which ultimately defines how we are supposed to think, how we are supposed to process things, how we are supposed to react, and things like that. That's not an education. That's an indoctrination. Why? Because it's not, this is the way it should be. It's more of a indoctrination of, this is how it is, like it or lump it. This is how we want you to be educated, if you can call it an education. And it's not. It's an indoctrination. When somebody is forcing you to learn something in a specific manner, that's not education. That's indoctrination. We want you to learn this. The question you'd have to ask yourself is, why do they want us to learn that in that particular manner? I've said it before, there are things in Australia and across the globe that we should be taught, but we're not. We're taught something opposite to that. If you wanted to look at it as a mechanism of stealth compliance, that would be the way to do it. Give the perception that you're receiving an education when the underlying factor of truth is, no, we're going to educate you to a line of thinking we want you to think, not the way it should be. We're never taught anything about contract law in the Australian educational curriculum. There's that word again, educational. There's nothing educational about it. Mark Twain even said it himself, never let a good education, never miss the opportunity for a good education by just going to school or something or other. In other words, there's an education outside of school. Most of the 99% of everything I'm aware of, that I know, that I've researched, didn't come from my schooling education. It's things I've learnt out of school. It's things I've researched out of school. It's things that I was never taught in school that I had to go and research and learn myself. I can't be Robinson Crusoe. Anybody that's gone to school in Australia would be in exactly the same boat. But the problem that I see is the diversity of multiculturalism in Australia. Some people can't have or interpret a life without being told what to do by the government. It's just a known fact. This is why 99% of people comply. Why? Because they believe truly within themselves that the government is the all-ruling supreme power, and it's not. Never has been. If you want to look at it from a sideways step, keeping in mind I'm not religious, we know as a fact God created man, man created government, government has created debtor. That's the fact of how it is. Government wasn't the all-ruling supreme power that created life, didn't create the planet or the universe or the solar system or anything else like that. Government was created by man, so we are a victim of our own creation. And we are the only species that can rectify the problem we have created for ourselves. Now, how would we rectify this? Well, the first thing we have to do is step out of the box of indoctrination that we have received that they title as an education, that we perceive as an education. Why? Because somebody else taught us this. Technically, you could say, yes, it's an education. But is it the truth? We all have an obligation to ourselves and everybody else to learn the truth. Otherwise, we would be nothing more than just another statistical figure who's running around in their lives purporting truth that are actually lies. People in Australia have become so indoctrinated now that they can't see anything else but the system. The system must be right because it's the system in place. And we have all sat back and done nothing about it, and yet we've gone with the status quo. We've just ridden the boat of the wave that it's currently on. And nobody's prepared to go, hang on a minute. Let's look at this from another avenue. I realised at the tender age of 15 that there's something fundamentally wrong with the system. It's not to say I don't like the system, and I'll be honest, I don't. I think the system is insidiously corrupt to the core. But I realised at 15 there's something wrong when a victim who receives a consequence or a punishment from the prison warden, which was the principal of the high school, the victim deals out, the principal deals out a punishment to the victim twice the consequence than the perpetrator. As an example, I was always bullied in high school. I was bullied through my entire schooling years because I didn't like violence. I didn't get into fights. I didn't like fighting. Now people can sit there and say I had no heart, I had no courage. Yeah, probably. I didn't want to be hurt. That's fair enough. That's not the case anymore. But excuse me. You learn. You can either be a victim, or you can say no to hell with this. I'm not going to be a victim any longer. I chose the latter, and it got me in trouble, naturally. But the point being is that I was always, in high school, was always bullied by a certain select group. And one of the members of that group bullied me again, and I'd had enough. I just fed up with it, and so I retaliated. The consequence for that was that I received 2 hits of the cane, and the perpetrator received 1. That's when I got the wake-up call that there's something wrong with the system. They tell us that we should turn the other cheek. Well, you try turning the other cheek, and all that does is show a bully that you're a pushover. You're an easy beat. You won't retaliate. Regardless of the fundamental ideology of what we should do, turn the other cheek, turn a blind eye, all that sort of stuff. And you look at what's going on in today's world with violence happening everywhere. There's separation amongst the masses. People don't trust anybody anymore, and they trust the government even less, and rightfully so. The government, I don't think, has ever been honest in a day of its life since it's been created. So, my suggestion is this: look in the comments section or the transcript section, find the web page, go and take a look for yourself. You don't have to believe it. It doesn't affect me whether you believe it or not. But you can't sit there without research and say, oh, that's all hogwash, that's conspiracy, rah, rah, rah. People who say that are the people who are too damn lazy, too stupid, or both, to go and actually look into it. Nobody's ever said, you must believe this. And I think the reason for that is because people don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to know how much they've been lied to, because being lied to is a far easier pill to swallow than actually accepting the truth that they've been lied to start with. I've never trusted government. Never, ever. It's one of those organisations that yields such power that it doesn't care about consequence because it never faces consequence. It never, ever, ever suffers what we do as individuals suffer. We do something wrong, we face consequence. They do something wrong, it's all good. It's the government, they can do what they like. They're essentially the government political cabal is essentially Al Capone. You couldn't draw it up any other way. They are literally Al Capone. The police are their thugs. The council is their debt collector, if you like. So how can anybody say that the government is not a criminal cabal? It absolutely is. It's a criminal cartel. It's an organisation. It's an organisation that we vote in, which is oddly enough, and because we comply in voting, we actually condone what the government does. Why? Because we voted for it. We don't openly vote for, yes, we want a criminal cartel. We vote for a criminal cartel. We know in the back of our minds they're going to do some illegal shit. And what can we do about it? Oddly enough, back in the Gillard era, where there was an election going on, it was the first time back then, first time in 75 years where we had a hung parliament. Half of the nation said, we don't want Gillard, and the other half of the nation said, we don't want the opposition. And so what did Labor do back then? Well, the Labor went and made deals, backdoor deals, with the Greens to obtain their votes to push them over the line. So you have to ask yourself, well, what's the legitimacy in voting? If you've voted and it's ignored, where deals are done behind closed doors to get them across the line, all those people who didn't vote for Labor just got screwed. Now, the government's quite proud on its gravy train of bullshit to tell us that, oh, your vote's important, it matters. It holds a validity. It's got value. When you analyse that, the value is whatever the infringement's worth. That's all your vote is worth. Now, if you believe in voting, in the illusion of voting gives you a sense of an opinion on who runs the country and how they run the country, you've just been lied to directly in your face. Take a look at Albo as a classic example. He's going to end this, he's going to end that, he's going to end something else, and completely the opposite has happened. Housing, petrol prices, inflation, cost of living, transparency. Where has any of this come to fruition of Albo's allegement that, yes, I'm going to solve this? It hasn't, and it never will. Why? Because he knows damn well, A, he can't stop it, B, he can't do a damn thing about it, because C, he doesn't have the balls to do anything about it. He's a yes man, he's a lapdog. That's all voters are picking, is which lapdog are we going to have next? Why? Because the politicians are being run by behind-the-scenes megalomaniacs. And until we stand up as a nation and say, stick it up your ass, we're not doing it. Until we ourselves grow a backbone and a pair of balls to say, nope, no more, had enough, nothing's going to change. And if you think by continuing to vote in a system that is set up and designed to screw you over and think everything is going to change, well, there's the classic definition of insanity, to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again and expect a different outcome. I still say that Australia is the world's largest prison island, and it is. No two ways about it. But where we're tasked in a regime to continually vote for the same bullshit every 4 years, can we say the politicians are to blame for that? They've only mandated it so that we feel like, oh, we're going to better comply, otherwise I'm going to get infringed. Fuck the infringement. If the whole nation said, stick it up your ass, we're not doing it, stick your infringement up your ass, we're not paying it, they can't lock us all up. They simply can't. There isn't enough room. It's a truism in the cliche, power to the people. We hold the power. But until we decide to get off our fat, lazy, uneducated assholes, grow a pair of balls, grow a spine, and say, no, nothing's going to change. If you bother to take the time to go to the webpage and read everything that's on it, watch the 30-minute video, you'll be gobsmacked like I was. I thought I had a fairly decent handle on constitutional matters and what the Constitution is supposed to represent. And I was disheartened, I was angry, I was frustrated. And then I thought for a minute, well, hang on a minute. I'm only those things because what I thought or perceived to be the truth had been kept from me and everybody else. So there it is. If you want to know what the truth is, aside from a bunch of shiny ass people in a bunch of expensive suits that you pay for, learn the truth about Australian politics. Learn the truth about the Constitution, because it's just a piece of paper. It bears no significance or relevance in law or anything else to do with Australia. And we hold it up as a shrine of significant importance, and it's not our Constitution. They're not our laws. They're not laws made by us for us. Go and have a read. Like I said, you don't have to believe it. Belief is a choice left upon the recipient of information. I wish you all the best, and please feel free to comment in the section if you've gone and read the information on the webpage, and tell me how you feel. You've been given a load of bullshit in a bag to believe that is the situation, that is the status quo, that is the legitimacy, to find that no, it's just another bag full of bullshit and lies. It's sad and it's unfortunate, and the only ones who can change it are we, the people. We are the only ones who change it, because at the end of the day, they're not going to change it. They've had it too good for too long. If they wanted to seriously make a change, they would have done it. Does that not stand to reason? I'm fortunate enough in the aspect that I'm legally not entitled to vote because I'm not an Australian citizen. I don't give a shit. I've been in the country 54 years. And yet I know more about the country and its constitution fabrication than most Australians do, which is absurd. It's about time that the Australian masses wake the fuck up and educate themselves. I keep coming back to, you don't have to believe it. That is the choice purely upon the recipient of the information they read. You want to continue with your head in the sandpit, or your thumb up your own ass, believing that, well, things are the way they are because that's the way they're meant to be. You are beyond any fucking help, period. These people who claim they love their country, or if you don't love Australia, get the fuck out. Well, I'm not born here. I love the country. I hate the fucking government. And I'm deeply offended that we vote for dead shits, liars, and charlatans looking for fucking leadership, who, in all honesty, could not hold a chook raffle in a fucking poultry farm. And we continue to vote for these assholes. You want to change, the person to change it is the person you see in the mirror. Stand up and do something about it. You don't have to stand up as an individual, one farting against a thunderstorm. I mean, there's 250 politicians across the entire criminal cabal. Well, we outnumber them. How much force, authority do they actually have? The problem with it is Australians seem only to band in arms when there's something that seriously comes across, slaps them in the face. Take a look at the protests over lockdowns. Everybody didn't like it and everybody joined arms. I mean, is that really what it's got to take this country to stand up as one and say, fuck you, no more? That's absurd. I'll leave it up to you. Take care.